Welcome to Solin Speaks. Today, we're exploring a topic that may be surprising: storytelling. Yes, you heard that right. Storytelling in the world of financial advising, and more specifically, how it could be costing you clients. I use AI technology to create these podcasts for those who prefer learning by listening. My co-host is David. He will interact with me and elicit the main points of the blog.
Hey Dan, I have to say, when I first heard the title, Are Your Stories Costing You Clients? I thought, wait, isn't storytelling supposed to help connect with clients? It seems like it's a big part of how we communicate in every field, from business to education, even in our personal lives.
Exactly, David. And that's the mainstream view. We all have fond memories of storytelling. Think about it. Many of us grew up with bedtime stories that helped us make sense of the world. They created an emotional connection that sticks with us. But here's the kicker. Storytelling isn't always the magic bullet in professional or social settings that we assume it to be.
So, you're saying that while storytelling can be helpful, it also has a downside?
That's right. Let's think about it this way. Imagine you're with a client and you're telling a story to illustrate, say, market volatility. It's well-intentioned, maybe even engaging, but research shows that when advisors focus too much on their own narratives, clients may actually feel disconnected. They miss out on sharing their own experiences, and that's a missed opportunity to deepen the advisor-client relationship.
I see. So, it's not about avoiding stories altogether, but being strategic about when and how we tell them.
Spot on, David. There's a balance. One study points out that storytelling can absolutely build trust. It helps clients remember important concepts and even encourages behavioral change, like becoming more financially disciplined. But then there's another study from the psychology department at Harvard, which brings up something fascinating. They found that people experience a real pleasure and intrinsic reward when they share their own stories. When we tell our stories, it triggers the brain's reward system, and we feel good.
So, in other words, advisors telling too many of their own stories might actually be blocking clients from having that rewarding experience.
Exactly. When we dominate the conversation, we're kind of robbing clients of that satisfaction. Think of it as story equity. Sure, use a story to explain something complex, but then create space for clients to share their financial journey. It's about making them feel heard and valued.
That's a great point, Dan. So, for an advisor listening in, how would you suggest they find that right balance? Should they avoid storytelling altogether?
No, I'm not suggesting they throw out storytelling altogether. It's about being intentional. For example, instead of launching into a detailed story about market dips and gains, an advisor might say, I understand market shifts can feel unsettling. What's your experience been? It opens the door for the client to share, and then you can guide the conversation. Another great approach is to use future-oriented questions. Something like, what would financial security look like for you 10 years from now?
I like that. It's like you're giving clients the pen and letting them write their own financial story. And that's pretty empowering, right?
Absolutely, David. By doing this, advisors help clients engage and feel a sense of ownership over their financial journey. It's about empowering, not overpowering. And here's an added benefit. Neuroscience research shows that people are more likely to retain information tied to emotional experiences. When clients share their personal stories, they're more likely to remember the advice connected to those stories.
So, it's a win-win. Clients feel heard, and they're more likely to remember the financial concepts because they're emotionally connected.
Exactly. Advisors get the best of both worlds. They're making a meaningful impact without overshadowing their clients' voices.
But Dan, sometimes advisors might feel they need to share stories to build credibility, especially with new clients. How can they establish trust without going overboard on storytelling?
Great question, David. It's about using stories to illustrate rather than dominate. A quick anecdote to explain a complex idea can be helpful. but then pivot back to the client. For instance, after sharing a brief example, an advisor could ask, "What resonates with you about this?" This way, the focus shifts back to the client.
It sounds like what you're really saying is make the client the main character in the story.
Yes, exactly, David. Advisors are there to support, not star in the narrative. A good rule of thumb is to let the client do most of the talking. Ask follow-up questions that get them to open up. And remember, active listening is key. When clients feel truly listened to, they're more likely to trust you.
I'm getting the sense that it's all about balance, using storytelling to clarify, but knowing when to step back and let the client's story come forward.
That's right. And advisors will find that clients open up more when they're given room to express themselves. Instead of telling another story, a well-placed question can reveal so much. Something simple like, "What are your biggest financial dreams?" can transform the conversation.
I love that. It's like advisors become a partner in the client's journey rather than a lecturer at the front of the room.
Exactly. And that's really the heart of what these studies are telling us. There's a balance to storytelling in client relationships. Advisors don't have to abandon it. Just be mindful of when and how they use it, so clients feel empowered and engaged in the conversation.
Dan, this has been insightful. Before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts for advisors listening?
Just remember the goal is to build trust and connection. So, listen more than you speak, ask questions that draw out your client's values, and let them feel the pleasure of sharing their own story. You'll not only foster trust, but help them engage with their financial journey on a deeper level.
That's fantastic advice. Thanks, Dan. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Solin Speaks. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe and check back regularly for more insights. If you want to drill down more on this subject, check out Dan's blog on LinkedIn. Until next time, keep those client conversations balanced and meaningful.